In this next section, we're actually going to split it up into two parts. The first section will concentrate on slope-intercept form. So as a reminder, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. You know you have an equation in slope-intercept form when the y is by itself. So again, the y must be by itself in order for you to say you have an equation in slope-intercept form. If the y is not by itself, you must get it by itself. Once y is by itself, the number in front of x is the slope, which remember m always represents slope. The number by itself, so like the constant term, the number without the variable, is the y-intercept. And again, a reminder, b is what they use in order to represent the y-intercept. To graph a line in slope-intercept form, so again, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. The first thing you do is get y by itself if it's not already by itself. You would plot the y-intercept first on the y-axis, because by definition the y-intercept is the place where the line crosses the y-axis. Starting from the y-intercept, you use the slope to plot the other points. You would want the slope as a fraction because you would use rise over run starting from the y-intercept in order to find the other points. Remember, you only need 2 points to draw a line, so once you plot the y-intercept, there's your first one, and then after you use rise over run with the slope to plot the second point, all you have to do is connect those 2 points. Let's look at some examples. Example number 1, graph x plus 4y equals 8. The first thing I notice about this equation is that the y is not by itself. So remember, in order to graph this equation in slope-intercept form, and in order to identify the slope and the y-intercept, the m and the b, I have to first get the y by itself. So the first step would be to subtract x from both sides. 8 minus x is just 8 minus x. You can put the negative x in front of the 8 if you wanted to. Remember, there's actually a 1 in front of the x, so when I divide by 4, I have to divide the entire right side by 4. So I would end up with y equals 8 divided by 4 is 2, and negative 1 divided by 4 is negative 1/4 x. Remember, you always want your slope as a fraction so that you can see the rise over the run. The number in front of x is the slope, so negative 1/4 is my slope. Notice that I only made one of the numbers negative, not both. If I made both numbers negative, that would be negative 1 divided by negative 4, which ends up being positive 1/4. And remember, my slope is supposed to be negative 1/4. And my y-intercept would be 2. Going to the graph now, I plot the y-intercept first on the y-axis. So starting at the origin, I'm going to count up 2 units and put a dot. And then starting from that point, I'm going to use the slope of negative 1/4 to find the other points. If it's negative 1 on top, remember the top number is your rise. So if it's negative 1, I'm going to go down 1. And then my bottom number is the run. Since it's positive 4, that means I'm going to go to the right 4. So again, starting from my y-intercept of 2, I'm going to count down 1 and to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, and put another dot. Since 2 points determine a line, all I will do with those 2 points is connect them. And there's the graph of the linear equation x plus 4y equals 8 that I first put into slope-intercept form by getting y by itself. I identified the m and the b. I start with the b on the y-axis, and then I use the slope as rise over run to find the other points, and I connected the 2 points to draw my nice straight line. Example number 2 is the opposite of example number 1. It says write an equation of the line in slope-intercept form. In example 1, we were given the equation and asked to graph it. Now here in example number 2, we're given the graph and asked to find the equation. If it says to write the equation in slope-intercept form, that means I need to find the m and the b, since slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. I need to find a number for m and a number for b, and then the x and y are always just in the equation. So again, the first thing I'm going to do is try to find the slope of this graph and find the b of this graph. To find the slope of the graph, I got to count the rise over the run. And if you notice in this graph, 2 points are not picked out for me. And I'm able to pick out the 2 points myself. So when I look at this graph, I see I have a point right here and a point right here that I'm going to use to count out my rise over the run. Sometimes the points are picked out for me, sometimes I have to pick out the points myself. But regardless, we always use rise over run, the most basic definition of slope, in order to find the slope of a graph. So starting from my leftmost point, I'm going to go rise over run. So I'm going to count up and then I'm going to count over. So I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and over 2. So my slope would have been 8 over 4, which in lowest terms would be 2. So my slope of the equation I'm supposed to find is 2. I also have to find the y-intercept. Now remember, the y-intercept is the place where the graph crosses the y-axis. So just looking at this graph, I see it crosses the y-axis right here at this point. That would be going down 1, 2, 3 units, so it would be -3 for my y-intercept. Once I have the m and once I have the b, I just have to take the m and the b and put it into my y equals mx plus b equation. So my final answer would be y equals 2x, since m was 2, minus 3, since b was -3. And that is my final answer. Example number 3 draws on some information that we learned in the last section. It says, write an equation of the line passing through the point 2, -3 that is parallel to the line with the equation y equals 6x plus 4. So I'm going to look at some keywords here. I first see that I'm given a point, 2, -3. I'm told that the equation I'm supposed to write is parallel to this equation that I was given. Making some connections here, I know that lines that are parallel have the same slope. Therefore, if I'm supposed to find the equation that is parallel to the equation that I was given, and the slope of this line is 6, then the slope of the equation I'm supposed to write is going to be 6. And again, I know that the slope of this equation is 6 because this equation is in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So the number in front of x was the slope, so the slope of the equation I was given is 6, and the slope of the equation I'm supposed to write will be 6 since I know the two lines are parallel. So I'm halfway there in writing the equation of the line passing through the point 2, -3 that is parallel to the line with the equation y equals 6x plus 4, because if I'm supposed to write the equation, I'm going to put it in slope-intercept form. So that means, again, just like in the last problem when I was finding the equation given the graph, I had to find the m and I had to find the b. So far, I've been able to find the m since I know it is parallel to the given equation y equals 6x plus 4. Therefore, I still need to find b. So I'm also given this ordered pair right here. I know that the slope is 6, and I have the ordered pair 2, -3. So far this is what I have for my equation. Y equals 6x plus b. I still have to find b. And I will use that ordered pair 2, -3 as an x value and a y value. 2 is an x value and -3 is a y value. I'm going to take those numbers and put 2 in for x into my equation and -3 in for y into my equation, and then I'll be able to solve for b. So in this case, it would be -3 equals 6 times 2 plus b. Notice that I have filled in all variables now except for b, so now I should be able to find what b is equal to. So simplifying this, I'd have -3 equals 6 times 2 is 12 plus b, and then I would subtract 12 from both sides. -3 minus 12 would be -15. So my b value is -15, so I have the m and I have the b. So now my last step would be just to write the final equation. Y equals 6x minus 15. So here is an equation of a line that passes through the point 2, -3 that is parallel to the line y equals 6x plus 4. Again, notice that they have the same slope, but different y-intercepts, meaning that these two lines would be parallel. Let's look at another example just like the last one. Example number 4, write an equation of the line passing through the point 3, -4 that is parallel to the line with the equation y equals -1/2 x minus 1. So again, I'm going to write my equation in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. It is my job to find the m and to find the b if I'm supposed to write the equation. Like last time, let's identify some key things that we were given. The equation that we are supposed to write passes through 3, -4. It is parallel to this equation. We know that parallel lines have the same slope. The slope of this equation I was given was -1/2 since it's the number in front of x. So the slope of the equation I'm supposed to write is going to be -1/2, again, because I know the slopes of lines that are parallel are the same. So again, I'm halfway there. I know m is -1/2. Now I need to find the b. So far I have y equals -1/2 x plus b. Again, I still need to find that b value. So I'm going to use the order pair that I was given. I know 3 is an x value and -4 is a y value. So I'm going to put -4 in for y and 3 in for x and solve for b. So I'd have -4 equals -1/2 times 3 plus b. So I'd have -4 equals half of 3 is 1.5, and in this case it'd be -1.5 since it was a negative times a positive. I would add 1.5 to both sides. -4 plus 1.5 would be -2.5. So there's my b value. I have my m. I have my b. So my final step would be to write the equation y equals -1/2 x minus 2.5. Example number 5. The graph shows the cost of having cable television installed in your home. Write an equation of the line. Explain the meaning of the slope. Example number 5. The graph shows the cost of having cable television installed in your home. Write an equation of the line. Explain the meaning of the slope and the y-intercept of your line. Just like before, I need to find the m and the b of the line in order to write the equation. So the first thing I'm going to do is pick out 2 points on the graph that I can count out the rise over the run. So I've picked out my 2 points, but I want to point out here before we move on is that the y-axis, the vertical axis here, which represents cost, they are actually counting by 40 each time. So each line represents 40 units. On the x-axis, they are counting by ones. The x-axis represents the number of months. So each line this way is only going up 1, but each line this way is going up 40. So when I count out my rise over the run, when I go up 1 vertically, I'm actually going up 40. And when I go over 1 horizontally, I'm only going over 1 unit. So therefore my slope would be 40 over 1. And notice when I counted up 40, that was dollars. So my top number represents dollars. And when I went over 1 horizontally, that represented months. So the top number represented cost, the bottom number represented months. When I find my y-intercept, that is the place where the graph hits the y-axis. So that would be right here. So my y-intercept in this case would be 80. So my equation would be y equals, I'm just going to leave it as 40x, because 40 over 1 simplified is 40, 40x plus 80. Now it wants me to explain the meaning of the slope and the y-intercept. So the slope, like we said, it was $40 over each month. So remember, this means like per, so it'd be $40 per month. So again, my slope represents the cost per month, which was $40. And the $80 is how much you were charged before any months had elapsed. At 0 months passed, I was charged $80. After 1 month had passed, I was charged an additional $40. So therefore, that leads me to believe that in order to have this cable television, I had to pay an $80 like installation fee or something just to even have cable television installed in my house. So again, the y-intercept here would be like your starting amount, which is $80. And that's it for this section. Make sure you jot down anything you don't understand or aren't remembering very well from last year so we can cover it in class before you're expected to do the book assignment. Remember, this is only the first half of this section. We still have the other half to do in the future. So again, write down any questions that you have, and we'll see you in class.